Running late for school, a teenage boy hears faint cries from a parked car. What he finds inside makes his heart stop. Moments later, he's sprinting to the hospital, carrying a life in his arms. But when the doctor finally speaks, her words bring tears to everyone's eyes. What really happened? Stay with me to find out. And before we continue, comment below, where are you listening from? The morning sun bore down on the quiet streets of Brookfield as Jake Carter, a 16-year-old high school junior, sprinted through the neighborhood. His backpack bounced against his shoulders, his breath came in ragged gasps, and sweat dripped from his forehead. He was late again. Mr. Porter, his history teacher, had zero tolerance for tardiness, and one more late mark meant a month of detention. Zerla, Jake cursed under his breath, pushing himself harder. But just as he turned the corner past the local gas station, something made him skid to a stop. A faint sound. A cry. It was muffled, weak, almost lost in the hum of morning traffic. Jake's pulse slowed as his eyes darted around. That's when he saw it. An old, sun-beaten sedan parked at the edge of the gas station lot. The windows were rolled up and the car sat under the relentless heat of the morning sun. Then, through the glare on the glass, he saw it. A baby, strapped into a car seat, face red, tiny hands pressing weakly against the window. Jake's breath caught in his throat. For a moment, Jake stood frozen, his mind racing. Was this real? Who would leave a baby alone in a locked car, especially in this heat? He looked around frantically. The gas station was nearly empty, a few cars parked near the pumps, but no one seemed to be paying attention. "Hey, is this your car?" he called out, voice echoing through the lot. No answer. The baby let out another weak, gasping cry. Jake's chest tightened. The heat inside that car had to be unbearable. He pressed his hand against the driver's side window. It was scorching. He tried the door handle. Locked. His mind spun. He could call 911, but what if help didn't arrive in time? The baby already looked exhausted, its tiny chest rising and falling in shallow breaths. He had to act, now. Jake's eyes darted across the lot. He needed something to break the window. Near the curb, he spotted a loose brick, half buried in gravel. Without hesitating, he grabbed it, weighing it in his hands. His heart pounded. If he broke the window, would he get in trouble? Would people think he was a criminal? He looked at the baby again, face flushed, movements sluggish. No time to think. With a deep breath, he raised the brick and smashed it against the back window. A sharp, deafening crack filled the air. Glass shattered, scattering across the car seat. The alarm blared, a piercing wail cutting through the silence. But Jake didn't stop. He reached inside, carefully brushing away the broken shards, and unbuckled the baby from the sweltering car seat. The moment he lifted the child into his arms, a wave of heat hit him, like stepping into an oven. The baby's skin was burning hot. Jake swallowed hard. The baby was barely moving. Panic surged through him. He looked round. Still no one. The hospital was 6 blocks away. 6 blocks. Without thinking, he ran. His legs burned, his arms ached, but he held onto the baby with all his strength. He couldn't stop. The baby's shallow breaths sent a new wave of fear through him. Halfway there, he heard it. Sirens. Flashing lights rounded the corner behind him. The police. A cop car screeched to a halt beside him. An officer jumped out, hand on his holster. "Kid, stop! Put the baby down!" Jake nearly collapsed from exhaustion. His chest heaved, but he shouted through his gasps. I found him locked in a car. The baby's burning up. I have to get him to the hospital." The officer hesitated for only a second before grabbing his radio. "Dispatch, we have a possible child endangerment. EMS needed immediately." They reached the ER doors just as a team of nurses rushed out with a stretcher. Jake handed the baby over, his arms trembling from the effort. The moment the nurse looked at the baby, her face drained of color. "Oh my God, it's him." Jake blinked. "What?" The nurse turned to a doctor, whispering frantically. A moment later, the doctor's eyes widened. "This is the missing child. From the Amber Alert last night." Jake's stomach dropped. Amber Alert? The memory slammed into him. Last night, his phone had buzzed with an alert. A kidnapped infant, taken from a grocery store parking lot. The baby in his arms wasn't forgotten, he was stolen, and Jake had just rescued him. Just then, more officers arrived, guns drawn. Jake barely had time to process what was happening before he felt a firm hand grab his wrist. "Kid, how did you get this baby?" The question hit like a slap. Jake's mouth went dry. I told you, he was in a car. I broke the window. I swear I was just trying to help." The officer's grip loosened slightly. "Whose car was it?" "I don't know. It was at the gas station." Another officer called over. "We ran the plates. The car was reported stolen this morning." Jake's mind spun. Whoever took the baby had ditched the car and fled. And now he was the one standing here with the baby in his arms. Minutes passed in a haze of sirens, voices, and flashing lights. Eventually an officer approached him, his tone softer. "Good, we believe you." Jake felt his knees go weak. Moments later, a woman ran into the ER, sobbing. A nurse steadied her as she collapsed at the sight of the baby. The child's mother. The moment she saw Jake, she rushed to him, eyes overflowing with tears. You saved him," she choked out. Jake didn't know what to say. He watched as she held her baby close, whispering words of love and relief. Hours later, as Jake sat in the hospital waiting room, an officer approached him. "Kid, you did something incredible today." He handed Jake a small card. "If you ever need anything, call me. The department owes you one." Jake just nodded, still processing everything. The next day, when he walked into school, he expected detention. Instead, Mr. Porter, his strict, no-nonsense teacher, gave him a rare nod of approval. "Carter," he said, "you're late, but I think you had a good reason." Jake couldn't help but smile. As he sat down, he pulled out his phone. His inbox was flooded with messages. "Brookfield teen saves kidnapped baby." His name was everywhere. He had never seen himself a hero, but today he was. Sometimes doing the right thing means taking a risk. One moment of courage can change everything. Like, share, and subscribe for more real-life stories that will leave you speechless.